On today's show, three-piece Tyrese is back, Rashaan Holmes is out again, and is it time to start Marvin Bagley? That's all coming up on the Royal Report.
Welcome. Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome back to Royal Rebounds TV. This is episode 7 of the Royal Report, a Sacramento Kings sports talk show. If you are a Kings fan, make sure you hit that like button down below. And if you enjoy content like this, consider subscribing to the channel.
Thanks for joining us, Royal family. Let's kick it off the same way we usually do here with some news from around the league.
Calvin. Steph Curry is making threes once again. He is currently only 9 shy of Ray Allen's record of 2,973 three-pointers. This is the all-time record for most threes. It's pretty crazy, Cal. It took Ray Allen about 1,300 games to do it, and Steph Curry is just shy of 790. He faces his brother tomorrow against the Sixers. Will he break the record? We will see.
He will break the record soon, that is for sure. He is red hot from three. There's another team that's red hot in the league, and they might surprise you. The league's longest winning streak currently sits at 7 games, and it's being authored by a very unlikely franchise. Houston, we have liftoff. That's right, H-Town, winners of their last 7 games, have rocketed away from the bottom of the Western Conference. The Rockets were a dismal 1-16 when the streak began, but have really taken advantage of some home cooking as of late. 6 of the 7 wins have come at the Toyota Center, and the other win at Oklahoma City is the team's only road victory this season. The Rockets have beaten the top 2 seeds in the East, Brooklyn and Chicago, during the run, and they'll look to take down the 3rd seed Milwaukee Bucks later today, Barry.
Their last loss was against the Boston Celtics. It was a pretty soft schedule there for some of the games, including a couple games against the Thunder. However, there were some big wins there. What is the main difference in the Rockets? Maybe they're just healthy. I'm not quite sure. In other news, unvaccinated players will no longer be allowed to travel to Canada, or Toronto more specifically, to play against the Toronto Raptors. This goes into effect on January 15th. About 97% of the league is currently vaccinated, and 60% of all players eligible for a booster shot have taken that shot. So there's about 15 players overall in the league that will be affected by this new rule. What a strange world we live in these days.
Yeah, it really is. There's one person that the Toronto Raptors do not want to see north of the border, regardless of his vaccination status, and that's Nikola Jokic. The reigning MVP hasn't been joking around lately on the court. The Nuggets have struggled early on and are completely decimated by injuries, yet Jokic almost single-handedly still has Denver clinging to a playoff spot. The Joker is averaging 26 points, 13 rebounds, 7 assists, and 1 steal per game while shooting 59% from the field and 36% from 3. He's also posted 3 straight triple-doubles, tying James Harden for 7th in NBA history with 62. He now needs 16 triple-doubles to tie Wilt Chamberlain for 6th all-time. Barry, he and Chamberlain are the only 2 7-footers in the top 10. It's pretty amazing what the Joker has done.
It really is. And his brothers are averaging 2 altercations a week with other players. What a crazy, huge family to be a part of. Moving on here, another stellar week of Kings basketball. The Kings go 2-0 this week. A pretty light schedule with a lot of time to heal up, get healthy, get some practice, get some reps in. But the Kings were able to defeat the Clippers yet again. This time, Paul George was on the court, but Terrence Davis stole the show with 28 huge points in that game. They go on to defeat the Magic as well, pouring in a season-high 142 points. It was a huge offensive performance by your Sacramento Kings, shooting 54% from the field, 44% from three-point range and 84% from the line. They did, however, give up a season-high 130 points in regulation against the Magic. Calvin, how are you feeling about this Kings team over this past week of action?
Well, it was a great week. You come in, you play only 2 games, you win both games. You can't ask for anything more than that. I was a little disappointed given the fact that you mentioned how much practice time they were going to be able to get, a little bit of rest. I wanted to see them come out and look a little sharper defensively overall. That first game against the Clippers was great. They held them under 100 points, but then they come back to one of the worst teams in the league and give up 130. So they definitely still have things to iron out. It was great to get Harrison Barnes back. Tough to lose Rashaan Holmes, which we're going to talk about. But to me, this week, besides Terrence Davis, who was the wild card, was really all about Fox and Haliburton. They really have started to click again together. I think they're getting more comfortable playing with each other. Fox in his last 3 games, 24 points, 17, and 33. He's shooting 40% from 3. Haliburton, 27 assists and has attempted 23 threes in those last 3 games. We all wanted him to be more aggressive, and he's knocking those threes down as well. So really, really encouraging to see the two of them play well together consistently. We're going to move on now and talk about Rashaan Holmes, who the Kings just lost. Last year, Rashaan opened eyes with what he could do on the court. This season, it seems like he's playing with his eyes wide shut. The Kings' big man has already missed 1 game due to a right eye contusion and will now miss 2 more games after being hit in the face by Mo Bamba on Wednesday night. Holmes suffered a laceration above the eye and left the game bleeding heavily right before halftime. The Kings are back on the road for 3 games against Charlotte, Cleveland, and Toronto. So, Barry, can Sacramento still salvage a winning record on this trip while missing Rashaan?
You know, Rashaan has been a very integral part in this Kings team this season. We've seen struggles by Tyrese Haliburton when Rashaan is off the court. However, they seem to have worked out some of those issues. Like you mentioned, Rashaan has missed a game recently due to an eye injury, 2 games due to an illness, and now he is out again due to eye injuries. So, unfortunately, it is not a very good situation for the Kings or for Rashaan in general. We saw what happened to Amari Stoudemire back in 2008, dealing with his own eye injuries, forcing him to miss the majority of the season. I don't think we'll see that for Rashaan, but it's worrisome as a Kings fan continuing to see him deal with eye issues.
Yeah, it's just really unfortunate. You know, luckily this time, as opposed to his first eye injury where he actually was poked in the eye, this is a cut, above his eye, even though it's going to require stitches and keep him out some time. Hopefully it doesn't have any lingering effects on the eye itself. If he has to come back and wear goggles, that may be the case. I think he has done that in his past. He used to wear glasses, so hopefully that won't be too much of an adjustment phase for him. But let's be frank, the Kings are going to miss him. He's a very important piece for this team. Luckily, they've got a guy named Tristan Thompson on this team, though, who has really, really played well in every opportunity that he's gotten, and I expect him to get a lot more minutes here while Rashaan is going to miss some games. I think Charlotte, they're pretty well taken care of here, even though they're going to miss Holmes. I'm worried about this game against Cleveland, though. Dealing with Evan Mobley and Jared Allen inside would have been extremely hard, even if Rashaan was healthy. Now they're going to have to go against them without him, and it's on the road. So, Barry, I circled that game as probably the toughest one here in this 3-game stretch coming up for Sacramento.
Yeah, I agree. 14-9 is what Rashaan is averaging. Those are huge minutes, huge points, huge rebounds for this Kings team to be missing. We'll see who starts tonight against the Hornets, but we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to dive into Tristan Thompson. Tristan Thompson has remained one of the bright spots on this Kings bench, coming off bringing energy and excitement. He was brought in as a veteran leader on this team, but it seems now he might be teaching these young Kings players a lesson that he didn't mean to teach in the first place. He is having more baby mama drama, reportedly having a child with an ex-trainer. Kim is done with him. Calvin, what the hell is going on with TT?
Well, I really don't know. I try at all costs to avoid stories like these, but here we are keeping up with Kardashians again. I'm more focused on how this is going to affect Tristan Thompson's play on the court, though. You know, to be serious, it really is unfortunate if these reports are true for all the parties that are involved, particularly this child who Tristan Thompson apparently is allegedly not going to have any involvement with. That just sucks. But getting back to playing on the court, I find this an interesting story because of the fact that it's been announced that Tristan Thompson might be retiring at the end of the season. Barry, do you remember what he said right around the time Luke Walton was fired? I believe he said the day he needs a coach to motivate him is the day that he retires from this game. So does that mean that he actually needs a coach to motivate him now?
I don't know. That is one thing that I did notice out of the report that really stuck out to me. You know, she's asking for a certain amount of child support. He's fighting it, saying it should be less because I plan on retiring at the end of the season. This guy's only 30 years old. I know he only has 1 year left on his contract, but if he were to leave the game today, he would leave a ton of money on the table.
He would. He certainly has accomplished a lot in the short time that he's been in the league, though. All right, let's move on and talk about some potential Pacers that have recently become available. It was reported on Tuesday by Shams of The Athletic that the Indiana Pacers are moving into a substantial rebuild. They've opened up trade talks for big men Domantas Sabonis, Miles Turner, as well as guard Caris LeVert. It's a surprising move for an Indiana franchise that has been quite consistent. The Pacers have missed the playoffs just 8 times in the last 30 seasons. Wow. Enter the Sacramento Kings, who know a thing or 15 about missing the playoffs. The Kings are now riding a 3-game win streak, and the faithful fan base is clamoring for Monte McNair to make a move that will improve the roster. So, Barry, if you're GM of the Kings, which one of these guys are you targeting?
You know, I think I'd be happy with any of these 3 guys. They are all talented players. You know, 25, 25, and 27 for Caris LeVert, respectively, are their ages. So they're very young. They have a lot of potential and a lot of talent, just straight up. Each one is making about $18 million this season. Sabonis has 2 years remaining on the deal after this year, and LeVert and Turner only have 1 year left each. But if I had to choose a guy, it's going to be Miles Turner. I think he is playing incredible. He's averaging 13 and 7 this year, 2.8 blocks this season, and he's shooting incredible 53% from the field and astonishing 40% from three-point range. I want to read a little quote from him after some of this news broke. "I don't want to be a glorified role player," is what he said. He wants to have a bigger impact on a team. I think that's very possible with the Kings, but they would probably have to end up trading their center in Rashaan Holmes to make that happen.
Yeah, I agree with that. The more I read into this story, you know, I was really excited to hear about this news when it first broke, but now I start to worry a little bit about how this is all going to fit together for Sacramento, and it really depends on what you give up in order to get one of these guys. I agree with you completely. Miles Turner would be my first choice out of all 3 of them. Sabonis is a very talented player. On paper, he's the most accomplished player, being a 2-time All-Star, but he is a predominantly interior player as well as Rashaan Holmes. I don't know how those 2 would fit together if you were going to play them alongside one another. On the reverse side of that, Miles Turner, I think, could fit in great, although it would be a similar role to what he's already doing in Indiana, a stretch big man who protects the rim. I think he could really provide a lot of assistance defensively for Rashaan Holmes, who wouldn't have to bang inside with the biggest bodies in the league night in and night out. He could jump outside and hit that 3. And imagine an offense where the paint is completely wide open. Miles Turner's setting screens in the pick and roll game for De'Aaron Fox. And on the other side of the court, you've got Rashaan Holmes setting pin downs for guys like Harrison Barnes, Terrence Davis, and Haliburton to come off for 3. I think it could really work. But again, Turner would have to buy into another role player in this new system.
Yeah, it's funny. You know, we talk about Miles Turner. He's not even the best player that's mentioned in these 3. You know, Domantas Sabonis is an incredible talent. He's huge. He's a great rebounder. He's a great scorer. He does almost everything on the court. And neither of us seem to be that interested in him. I think we are, but it's just what it's going to take to get him and whether he would fit in on this fast-paced team.
He doesn't play a lot of defense either. That's the big thing for me.
Miles Turner plays wonderful defense. He's a good shooter. You have to do what you're good at, and I think that's something the Kings would have to focus on with bringing him onto this squad. He would have to accept, what his role will be on this team, and that is going to be playing defense and shooting threes. Speaking of roles on the team, let's move on to Marvin Bagley. Marvin Bagley has officially played 10 games this season, and now he's averaging about 18 minutes per game. He's shooting about 50% from the field. He's career lows on rebounds and points per game. However, that is probably due to his lack of minutes. But we've seen him playing much better recently. He's hit a couple big threes late in games. The departure of Luke Walton seems to be huge for Marvin Bagley. But Calvin, I ask you, is it time to start Marvin?
Is it time? I'm not so sure. I think he's earned it. I've really been impressed with how Marvin has handled himself through this whole situation. He's sort of, in his renaissance phase now that Alvin Gentry has taken over. Like you said, the minutes per game have really, really increased. The number of appearances we've seen him in games has increased as well. And his numbers are down, but his per 36 minutes stats are actually pretty similar to what he's done for his whole career. His scoring is slightly down, but again, I think that's just because of the opportunities that he's gotten. I certainly wouldn't be disappointed to see him in the starting lineup. Like I said, I think he's earned it. However, I don't expect to see him in the starting lineup anytime soon. I think Alvin Gentry really loves this smaller lineup that he's run lately. Terrence Davis has been huge for the Kings in recent games, and as long as he continues to play well and hit from the outside, I expect to see him and Harrison Barnes get the start at the forward spots.
We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to jump into my favorite part of the show, Cowbell Questions.
Welcome back. It is time to turn the show over to you, the fans, as we ring the bell here for Cowbell Questions. Thank you for your submissions. As you know, if you'd like to have a question in the future answered by Barry and I on the Royal Report, just write it down in the comment screen below this video and hashtag it Cowbell Questions. All right, Barry, let's get it kicked off here with our first question, which comes to us from Kenneth Robertson. He says, what do y'all think about a Buddy Hield trade for Eric Gordon?
Well, Kenneth, that is a tough question to answer. Calvin and I have been fans of Buddy at times during this season. We've also not been fans of him. He seems to be super streaky. You look at a guy like Eric Gordon. I love the 44% from three-point range. However, he is 32 years old. He's on the back end of his career. I'm not sure exactly what he would bring to this Kings roster and whether it's worth, mixing up the chemistry of this team mid-year without bringing in another big-name player, a star player, or someone that's going to build with this team throughout the next few years. If the Kings were to add a guy like Eric Gordon, I feel like it'd be maybe for the rest of this year, potentially next year, but not a long-term fix at all.
Yeah, let's look at the numbers here. This season, Gordon is averaging 14 points. He's shooting 48% from the field, and as you mentioned, 44% almost from three. He's a career 37% three-point shooter, turns 33 on Christmas Day. Buddy Hield, 15 points per game, 38% from the field, 35% from three, while being a 40% career three-point shooter, and he turns 29 on December 17th. These guys have both won named to all rookie teams. Gordon has won a Sixth Man of the Year award the same year that Buddy Hield was an all-rookie performer. So their careers so far have been pretty similar. It's just even their birthdays are almost the same day. It's just one is a few years older. In terms of consistency, I think Eric Gordon would be better. Right now, he's trending upwards, shooting-wise. Buddy Hield is trending in the wrong direction. I'm not really sure if this move would improve either team that much. I agree with what you said. Buddy Hield, I think, should be put involved in a deal, maybe with another Kings player that brings back a little more talent than just swapping shooter for shooter here.
Yeah, I agree. Moving on to our next question here, Cal. How are you feeling about HB? Trade him?
I feel great about Harrison Barnes, and every Kings fan should. He's been the most consistent King all season long for Sacramento. Just under 20 points a game. Great scorer. We know he can score from all areas on the court, 3 levels. He's one of the best shooters on the team. He's one of the best rebounders on the team. He's one of the best defenders on the team. So if you're going to trade Harrison Barnes, I need to be getting something substantial in return. And I need to be getting a wing back because he is also one of the only wings on this team. So if you give him up and you don't get a starting caliber wing in return, it's going to hurt the team long run, I believe.
Yeah, I totally agree. I love everything that I've seen from HB other than these injuries that have happened lately. He's averaging 19 points a game this year. I think this is arguably one of the best seasons of his career. You look at shooting percentage, you look at points per game, rebounds. His impact on this team has been huge. There are a few things that concern me. One would be that he only has 1 year left on his deal after this year. That's about $18 million. What is it going to cost to keep HB on this squad? I think if you look at his age, his performance, he's probably in line for one more big contract in his career. I don't know if that's going to work for the Kings, so I would consider entertaining some trades maybe towards the end of this season, but I don't think I would blow it up at this point unless I am bringing in another star player or a big wing player like you mentioned, Cal.
Yeah, totally agree with that. All right, let's move on. Our third and final question comes to us again from Young Blood. Thank you very much for the submission. He wants to know, what do you guys think of Lauri Markkanen, and are you willing to entertain a trade for the Cavs big man?
I think we answered this one maybe a couple weeks ago. I like Lauri. I like his game. He's had some health issues in the past, just like Marvin Bagley, but he stayed pretty consistent this year. He's played a ton of minutes. He started a bunch of games. He's shooting very well from 3-point range. However, there is a story that broke this week that potentially he will have to serve in the Finnish military next season. I have no idea how that will impact his availability in the NBA, but that does bring up a big concern for me.
Yeah, it's a pretty crazy story. The Finnish military apparently has a special division just for athletes, so they are still able to train and practice for their respective sports while completing their military training. I think they have to serve for roughly 165 days or something, and if he is selected, he's supposed to report the day after the regular season ends, which could be bad for a team that's in a playoff position if he is on the roster. But it's still uncertain whether or not he's actually going to have to do this service. As far as what he would bring to Kings on the court, I think he could help in a lot of ways. He's a stretch shooter, a stretch four, somebody that they could really benefit from, who's out there taking threes. He's had a bounce back season after a couple of injury plagued years in Chicago. So it does kind of sound like another Marvin Bagley situation here rolling in. I do think that there's maybe some better or more effective stretch 4 or 5 players that the Kings could target. Miles Turner or Domantas Sabonis, being at the top of the list right now. Lauri Markkanen's a fine player, but I would like the Kings to have their eyes set on bigger targets. That is all the time we have for Cowbell Questions. Thank you again for your submissions, and we will look forward to answering more questions from you on next week's show.
Yes, thank you all so much for your questions. We really enjoy answering them. We really do. All right, moving on here. Tyrese Haliburton, his nickname in high school, three-piece Tyrese, is ringing true this season. He's shooting 40% from three-point range, averaging 12 points, 6 assists, 4 rebounds. But the biggest difference we've seen in Tyrese Haliburton's game this season has been defense. He is killing it on the defensive end of the floor, averaging 1.8 steals per game, 0.8 blocks per game, and he's having just an overall big impact. Coaches are raving over the defensive improvements this guy has made this season.
Yeah, he's really picked it up as of late too. Like we mentioned earlier on in this show, one of the main concerns with Tyrese this season has been his lack of aggression offensively. He's played this new role where he's sort of guiding the Kings offense, and I think at times he has felt as if he is supposed to distribute more than he's supposed to look for his own shot. During the 3-game win streak, that has all changed, though. In these 3 games, he's averaging 16 points, 9 assists, almost 2 steals, and 3 rebounds, and he's shooting now 48% from 3 in those 3 games while attempting more per game. So these are all really encouraging signs to see from him, especially when you combine the fact with De'Aaron Fox is also starting to pick it up offensively. So if the two of these guys continue to play at this rate, the Kings are going to be a tough out for any team.
Yeah, I totally agree. And like you mentioned, he's being a lot more aggressive. I love what I've seen for him. We've talked about the chemistry issues potentially between Haliburton and Fox. Seems to a lot of those have been resolved so far, and it's adding up in Kings victory. So very happy to see that.
100%. All right, let's move it on here towards the end of the show where we look ahead to the next week of Sacramento Kings basketball, and it is must-win basketball. The Kings are back on the road, as we said before. They play Charlotte later today, a back-to-back tomorrow with Cleveland, and then Toronto before returning home for one game against the Washington Wizards. Charlotte and Toronto are both bitten by the COVID bug right now, so those are some great opportunities, winnable games for the Kings. I'm circling Cleveland and Washington here this week. Cleveland dealing with their twin towers inside. It's going to be a lot to ask for Sacramento, who really loves to push the ball inside and get easy points in the paint. There's not going to be any easy baskets around the basket in that game. And then the Washington Wizards, one of the surprise teams in the league this year. They also play at a very slow pace and are very balanced offensively. Guys like Montrezl Harrell and Kyle Kuzma, who were almost Sacramento Kings at the beginning of the year, are having really good seasons in Washington. Those are going to be 2 really key games for me. And I really hope that the Kings can continue this win streak, at least, get a winning record out of this while they return home.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. 2 games without Rashaan Holmes this week. Hopefully that is all that he will miss with the right eye laceration. Tonight's game against the Charlotte Hornets, the Hornets are missing 5 players due to COVID protocols. That's including Ball, Rozier, McDaniels, Plumlee, and Ish Smith. So, there are no easy victories in the NBA, but it is a good chance for your Sacramento Kings to get another victory here. As they say, back-to-backs in the league are always tough. The Kings will be playing against the Cavaliers on Saturday. It's funny, you look at this schedule just a season ago, your mouth would be watering looking at games against the Cavaliers, the Wizards, the Hornets. All these teams are greatly improved. It's going to be a tough week of Kings basketball, but like you said, it is must-win basketball. We want to thank you all for joining us on another episode of the Royal Report with Calvin and Barry. We will see you all tonight, post-game live, after the Kings hopefully beat the Hornets. Thanks all, and have a good day.
Go Kings.